The charity gala was the last place Salvatore Romano wanted to be. Crystal chandeliers dripped light onto 500 guests in designer gowns and tailored suits. Champagne flowed like water. Laughter echoed off marble walls, the kind of practiced, hollow laughter that came from people who had never known real suffering. Sal stood near the edge of the ballroom, nursing a whiskey he hadn't touched, counting down the minutes until he could leave. These events were necessary, a public face for his less public empire, but they grated on him like sandpaper on raw skin. Too much pretense, too many lies wrapped in silk and pearls. He was calculating his exit strategy when the child slammed into his legs. She was small, impossibly small, all tangled brown hair and terrified eyes. 6 years old, maybe 7. She wore a dress that was too fancy for her frame, and she was shaking so hard he could feel it through the fabric of his trousers. "Please." Her voice was barely a whisper. Her tiny hands grabbed his, clutching like he was the last solid thing in a drowning world. "Please don't let him take me back." Sal froze. He looked down at the girl, at her huge, haunted eyes, at the fading bruise on her cheekbone that makeup couldn't quite hide, at the way she pressed herself against his legs like she was trying to disappear into his shadow. "Who?" His voice came out rougher than he intended. "Who's trying to take you?" "Ivy." A man's voice cut through the crowd. Sharp, angry, controlled in the way that spoke of violence carefully leashed. "Ivy, come here. Now." The girl, Ivy, flinched like she'd been struck. Her grip on Sal's hand tightened until her knuckles went white. "Please," she whispered again. "He hurts me. He hurts me and nobody believes me and I can't go back. I can't. I can't." Sal looked up and saw the man approaching. He was in his 50s, silver-haired and handsome, wearing the kind of easy smile that politicians practiced in mirrors. Dennis Carver. Sal recognized him from the donor list. Old money, philanthropic reputation, rumored to have the mayor's ear. The kind of man who got away with things because no one wanted to believe he was capable of them. "I'm so sorry." Carver's voice was smooth, apologetic. "My foster daughter has a habit of running off. She has some behavioral issues. Nothing we can't handle, but it does make events like these challenging." He reached for Ivy's arm. Sal moved without thinking. His hand closed around Carver's wrist, stopping him mid-reach. The grip wasn't tight enough to break bones. Not yet. But it was tight enough to make a point. "The child stays with me." Carver's smile flickered. "Excuse me?" "She asked me for help." Sal's voice was quiet, deadly calm. "I'm going to give it to her." "This is ridiculous. She's my ward. I have legal custody." "And bruises on her face that say your custody isn't something she should be subjected to." The words landed like stones in still water. Around them, conversations faltered. Heads turned. The glittering crowd began to sense that something was happening, something that didn't fit the script of champagne and small talk. Carver's mask slipped, just for a moment. Beneath the polish, Sal saw something ugly, something cold and cruel and all too familiar. He'd seen that look before, on his father's face, seconds before the belt came down. On the faces of the foster families who had broken his mother piece by piece, on every monster who had ever hidden behind a respectable facade. "You don't know what you're getting involved in." Carver's voice dropped, his smile gone. "I have friends, powerful friends. You don't want to make an enemy of me." "I have enemies." Sal smiled, and it was a terrible thing, all teeth and darkness and the promise of violence. "One more won't make a difference." He looked down at Ivy, still pressed against his legs, still trembling like a leaf in a storm. "You're safe," he told her quietly. "I'm not going to let anyone hurt you." For the first time, something flickered in her eyes. Not hope. She was too young to have learned how to hope. but something close to it. The desperate, fragile belief that maybe, just maybe, this stranger might actually mean what he said. Promise? Her voice cracked on the word. Sal thought of his sister, of the day he'd come home from school to find her cold and still, starved and neglected while their father drank himself into oblivion. Of the scream that had torn out of his 16-year-old throat and never really stopped. I promise. The commotion had drawn security. Two men in dark suits approached, their expressions uncertain. This was Salvatore Romano, one of the most powerful men in the city, facing off against Dennis Carver, one of the most respected. Neither was someone you wanted to cross. Gentlemen, the head of security cleared his throat. Is there a problem here? No problem. Carver straightened his jacket, his mask sliding back into place. Just a misunderstanding. My daughter is confused. She's not your daughter. A new voice cut through the tension. And she's not confused. Sal turned. The woman pushing through the crowd was young, mid-20s, with auburn hair pulled back in a messy ponytail and eyes the color of storm clouds. She was wearing a dress that didn't quite fit, borrowed or bought secondhand, and she moved with the kind of desperate determination that came from having nothing left to lose. Ren! Ivy released Sal's hand and flew toward the woman, who caught her and held her tight, her whole body curving around the child like a shield. It's okay, baby. The woman, Ren, pressed her lips to Ivy's hair. I'm here. I've got you. Ma'am. The security guard stepped forward. I'm going to need you to... My name is Ren Holloway. I'm Ivy's sister. Her real sister. And I've been trying to get custody of her for 8 months. Her voice was steady, but Sal could see her hands shaking. I've filed 6 complaints with CPS about the abuse she's suffering in that man's care. 6. They've all been dismissed. Because they're lies. Carver's voice dripped with condescension. This woman is unstable. She has a history of making false accusations. I have a history of surviving the same system that's destroying my sister. Ren's eyes blazed. And I have documentation, medical records, photographs, testimony from Ivy's teachers who've seen the bruises and the fear. She turned to the security guard. Call the police. Let them sort this out. If I'm lying, I'll face the consequences. But if I'm telling the truth, you're wasting everyone's time. Carver reached for Ivy again. I'm taking my ward home. Sal stepped between them. He didn't say anything. Didn't need to. His presence alone was enough. 6 feet 2 inches of cold fury, wrapped in a designer suit, radiating the kind of danger that money couldn't buy and power couldn't protect against. The child stays. His voice was soft, final. Until the authorities arrive and sort this out. Carver's face went red. You have no right. I have the right of a man who's watched too many children suffer at the hands of people who were supposed to protect them. Sal's eyes never left Carver's. The right of someone who's made it his life's work to ensure that monsters like you don't get to hide behind their reputations forever. The crowd had gone silent. 500 guests stood frozen, champagne glasses suspended mid-sip, watching the confrontation like it was theater. This isn't over. Carver's voice was a snarl. You don't know who you're dealing with. Neither do you. Carver turned and pushed through the crowd, his perfect facade cracking with every step. The security team let him go. They had bigger problems now. A scene that would be all over the society pages by morning. Sal turned to Ren, who was still clutching Ivy like she might disappear if she let go. You said you have documentation. Everything. Ren's chin lifted. Dates, photos, medical records. Everything CPS ignored because Carver knows people. Then let me help you. Why? Suspicion flickered in her eyes. You don't know us. You don't owe us anything. No. Sal looked at Ivy, at her bruised face, her trembling hands, her eyes that held too much darkness for someone so young. But I made her a promise, and I don't break promises. Ren stared at him for a long moment. She was trying to figure him out, he realized, trying to determine if he was another wolf in sheep's clothing, another threat disguised as salvation. I know who you are, she said finally. Salvatore Romano. I've read the papers. I know what people say about you. Then you know I have the resources to help. And the motivation to see men like Carver destroyed. Why? Why would you care about a stranger's custody battle? Sal thought of his sister again, of her name on a headstone that no one ever visited, of the promise he'd made over her grave, that he would never let another child suffer the way she had suffered. Because someone should have helped her, he said quietly. And no one did? Ren's expression shifted. The suspicion didn't disappear, but something else joined it. Recognition. Understanding. Okay, she whispered. Okay, help us. Ivy looked up from her sister's arms and found Sal's eyes. In them, he saw something that broke him and healed him all at once. Trust. Thank you, she said, so softly he almost missed it. For not letting him take me. Sal crouched down until he was at her level. I told you I wouldn't. I keep my promises. He held out his hand. Let's get you somewhere safe. Ivy looked at his hand, then at her sister, then back at him. Slowly, carefully, she reached out and took it. And something that had been frozen inside Salvatore Romano for 18 years began, finally, to thaw. The Romano estate was nothing like Ren had expected. She'd imagined something cold, sterile, the kind of place that reflected its owner, all sharp edges and dangerous silences. Instead, she found warmth, soft lighting, rooms filled with books and family photographs and the lingering scent of something baking in the kitchen. My mother, Sal explained, leading them through the entrance hall. She insists on keeping the house. Lived in. Your mother lives here? She has her own wing. She prefers the quiet. Something flickered across his face. Pain, maybe, or grief. She doesn't handle strangers well, but she'll want to meet Ivy eventually. She has a soft spot for children. Ren tightened her grip on Ivy's hand. Her sister had fallen asleep in the car, exhausted by fear and adrenaline, and was now stumbling along in a half-daze, her small body pressed against Ren's side. I still don't understand why you're doing this. Ren kept her voice low. Men like you don't help people like us, not without wanting something in return. Sal stopped walking, turned to face her. In the soft light of the hallway, he looked different than he had at the gala. Less like a predator, more like a man carrying a weight he'd never learned to put down. I had a sister, he said quietly. Lucia. She was 4 years younger than me. Ren waited. Our father was a drunk. Violent when he remembered we existed, neglectful when he didn't. I tried to protect her, but I was just a kid myself. I couldn't. He stopped, swallowed. She died when she was 12. Malnutrition, mostly. Neglect. The system knew. Social workers came and went. Nothing changed. His jaw tightened. She died in a house full of food because our father couldn't be bothered to feed her, and the people who were supposed to save her decided it wasn't worth the paperwork. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, be angry. His eyes met hers. I've spent 18 years being angry. It's the only thing that's kept me going. Is that why you built all this? Ren gestured at the estate around them. The money? The power? I built all this so that when I find men like Dennis Carver, I have the resources to destroy them. His voice was flat, matter of fact. Money buys lawyers, power buys influence, and influence buys justice, the kind that the system refuses to provide. Ivy stirred against Wren's side, murmuring something in her sleep. Wren stroked her hair automatically, the gesture born of months of stolen moments and supervised visits that were never long enough. The system failed me too, she said quietly. I aged out of foster care at 18 with nothing. No family, no money, no future. I clawed my way through college, got a job as a social worker, thinking I could fix things from the inside. She laughed bitterly. I was naive. You were hopeful. There's a difference. Is there? She looked down at Ivy. I've spent 8 months fighting for her. Filing reports, gathering evidence, begging judges to listen, and every time, Carver's connections make it disappear. His lawyer knows the right people. His donations buy the right favors. Her voice cracked. I'm losing her. Every day I can't get her out, I'm losing her a little more. You're not going to lose her. You can't promise that. I can promise to do everything in my power to make sure it doesn't happen. Sal's voice was steady, certain. I have lawyers who don't answer to Carver's friends, investigators who know how to find evidence that can't be buried. And I have something Carver doesn't. What's that? Patience. His smile was cold. I've waited 18 years to make men like him pay. I can wait a little longer to do it right. A door opened at the end of the hallway. A woman appeared, small and frail, with silver hair and dark eyes that held a distant, dreaming quality. She moved slowly, like someone walking through water, her gaze drifting over them without quite landing. Salvatore? Her voice was soft, uncertain. I heard voices. It's all right, Mama. Sal's entire demeanor changed, the hardness melting away, replaced by something gentle, tender. We have guests, a woman and her little sister. They're going to stay with us for a while. Rosa Romano's eyes found Ivy, and something shifted in her face, a light flickering on in a room that had been dark for years. A child, she whispered. There's a child in the house. Her name is Ivy. She's 6 years old. Rosa drifted closer. Her hand reached out, trembling, hovering near Ivy's sleeping face without quite touching. She looks like Lucia. Her voice broke on the name. Around the eyes, that same sweetness. Wren's chest tightened. She could see it now, the grief that had hollowed this woman out, leaving behind a shell that moved through the world without really inhabiting it. Rosa Romano had lost her daughter and never recovered. Maybe never would. Ivy needs help, Mama. Sal's voice was gentle. She's been hurt. We're going to protect her. Rosa's eyes sharpened. For a moment she was fully present, fully there, in a way that seemed to surprise even her son. Yes, she said firmly. Yes, we'll protect her. No one will hurt her here. She looked at Wren. You're her sister? Yes, ma'am. Then you're family now, too. Rosa reached out and took Wren's hand, her grip surprisingly strong. Family protects each other. That's what we do. Wren felt tears prick her eyes. She'd spent so long fighting alone, so long with no one in her corner, no one who believed her, no one who cared whether she won or lost. And now this strange, broken family was opening their doors like it was the most natural thing in the world. Thank you, she managed. I don't know how to... Don't thank us yet. Sal's voice had hardened again, the businessman returning. Carver isn't going to let this go. By tomorrow, he'll have lawyers and police, and anyone else he can buy demanding that Ivy be returned to his custody. Then what do? We fight. His eyes met hers. But we fight smart. You said you have documentation, evidence that CPS ignored. I want to see all of it. Every report, every photograph, every record. My people will find what the system missed. And if they don't find anything new, they will. His jaw set. Men like Carver always leave a trail. They're too arrogant to believe anyone will ever look hard enough to find it. Ivy stirred again, her eyes fluttering open. She looked around in confusion, then spotted Sal and relaxed. "You're still here," she said softly. "I thought maybe I dreamed you." "I'm still here." He crouched down to her level, the way he had at the gala. "And I'm not going anywhere. Promise?" "Promise." Ivy considered this. Then she looked at Rosa, who was watching her with that same hungry, hopeful expression. "Who's that?" "That's my mother. Her name is Rosa." "She looks sad." "She is sad. She lost someone she loved very much, a long time ago." Ivy pulled away from Wren and walked toward Rosa with the fearless directness that only children possessed. She stopped in front of the older woman and studied her face. "My sister says that when you're sad, you need hugs," she announced. "Do you want a hug?" Rosa's composure shattered. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she sank to her knees and gathered Ivy into her arms. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I would like that very much." Wren watched them, this grieving mother and this wounded child, and felt something shift in her chest. A crack in the armor she'd built around her heart over years of disappointment and betrayal. She looked at Sal and found him watching too, his expression unreadable. "Thank you," she said again. "I know I said not to thank you yet, but—" "You can thank me when Ivy is safe." He met her eyes. "When Carver is in prison and you have custody and no one can ever take her from you again." "That could take months. Years." "Then I'll be here for months. Years." His voice softened, just slightly. "However long it takes." Wren didn't know what to say. She'd learned long ago not to trust promises. They were just words people used to make themselves feel better before they let you down. But something about the way Sal said it made her want to believe. Just this once, she wanted to believe. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks of lawyers and court filings and evidence gathering. 3 weeks of Carver's attorneys making increasingly desperate demands for Ivy's return, each one countered by the wall of legal firepower Sal had assembled. 3 weeks of holding their breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. And 3 weeks of watching Ivy slowly, carefully, begin to heal. She still flinched at loud noises. Still had nightmares that sent her screaming into Wren's arms at 3 a.m. Still sometimes went quiet and distant, retreating to a place inside herself where the pain couldn't reach. But there were other moments too. Moments when she laughed at something Rosa said. Moments when she chased butterflies in the garden or sat on Sal's lap while he read her stories in Italian. Moments when she looked like what she was supposed to be. A 6-year-old girl discovering that the world could be safe and warm and full of people who loved her. Rosa had transformed. The distant, dreamlike quality was fading, replaced by a fierce, protective energy that seemed to grow stronger every day. She'd appointed herself Ivy's guardian, rarely letting the child out of her sight, feeding her homemade pasta and teaching her Italian nursery rhymes, and holding her during the nightmares when even Wren's comfort wasn't enough. "She's healing too," Sal told Wren one evening, finding her on the terrace watching the sunset. "My mother. I haven't seen her this present in years." "Ivy has that effect on people." Wren smiled softly. "She's been through hell, but she still knows how to love. I don't know how she does it." "Children are resilient." He came to stand beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. "They bend instead of breaking. At least, they do if someone catches them in time." "You caught her." "We caught her." He glanced at her. "You were fighting for her long before I entered the picture. Don't discount that." "I was fighting a losing battle." "You were fighting anyway. That's what matters." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn from gold to purple. Wren was acutely aware of his presence, the breadth of his shoulders, the way the fading light caught the silver at his temples, the quiet strength that radiated from him like heat. She'd spent 3 weeks trying not to notice these things, trying to remember that he was a dangerous man, a criminal, someone whose world was built on violence and blood, trying to ignore the way her heart stuttered whenever he walked into a room. It wasn't working. The investigators found something, Sal said quietly. I wanted to tell you before the lawyers did. Wren's stomach dropped. What kind of something? Other victims, at least 4 children who were placed with Carver over the past decade. They're all adults now, scattered across the country. 2 of them are willing to testify. The air left her lungs. Are you serious? My people tracked them down through old CPS records, the same records that were supposed to have been sealed. His jaw tightened. Carver has been doing this for years, hurting children, then using his connections to bury the evidence when they spoke up. But he couldn't erase the survivors themselves. Tears blurred Wren's vision. This changes everything. It gives us leverage. Real leverage. He turned to face her fully. My lawyers are filing an emergency motion tomorrow. With testimony from other victims and the evidence you've gathered, we have grounds to have Carver's foster license revoked immediately and criminal charges filed. And Ivy? Emergency custody transfer. To you. His voice softened. By the end of the week, she'll be yours. Legally and permanently. Wren couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. 8 months of fighting, of begging, of watching the system fail her sister over and over. And now, finally, there was a light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know how to thank you, she whispered. Everything you've done. You don't need to thank me. I do. Sal, you've given us everything. A safe place to stay, lawyers, investigators. You've spent a fortune helping people you didn't even know. I knew Ivy. His eyes held hers. I knew her the moment she grabbed my hand. I knew her because I was her once. A scared child begging strangers for help. He paused. And I knew you because you were me, fighting a system that didn't care, refusing to give up even when giving up would have been easier. We're not the same. No. You're better. He reached out, his fingers brushing her cheek so gently she almost thought she imagined it. You fight with light, Wren. With hope. I lost that a long time ago. I don't think you did. She caught his hand before he could pull away. I've watched you with Ivy, with your mother. You're not the monster the papers make you out to be. I've done monstrous things. Maybe. But you've also done this. She gestured at the house behind them, at the garden where Ivy played, at the life they'd been building together. Monsters don't save children, Sal. They don't rebuild their mothers. They don't fight for people they have no reason to fight for. His expression flickered, vulnerability breaking through the mask, just for a moment. Wren dash dash. A crash from inside the house cut him off. They both turned, adrenaline spiking, and ran. The living room was in chaos. Rosa was screaming, a high, terrified sound that Wren had never heard from her before. Ivy was crying, clutching Rosa's legs. And in the center of the room stood 3 men in dark suits, their faces hard, their intentions clear. Mr. Carver sends his regards, one of them said calmly. He'd like his property returned. Sal moved like lightning. He was across the room before Wren could blink, his body between the intruders and his family. His voice was ice. You're in my house. And you have something that belongs to our employer. Ivy doesn't belong to anyone. Wren stepped forward, her own fear buried beneath a surge of protective fury. She's a child, not property. She's a ward of the state, currently in the custody of Dennis Carver. The man smiled. We're here to collect her. Over my dead body. Sal's voice dropped to something dangerous, deadly. You have 3 seconds to leave before my men arrive. 1. Your men are currently occupied. The smile widened. Did you think we'd come unprepared? Carver has resources too. 2. Give us the girl and no one gets hurt. Sal moved. What happened next was too fast to follow. One moment he was standing still. The next, the first man was on the ground, his arm bent at an unnatural angle, his scream echoing off the walls. The second man reached for a weapon, but Sal was faster. A brutal strike to the throat that left him choking, gasping, crumpling. The third man grabbed Ivy. Don't move. He had a knife now, pressed against the side of the little girl's neck. Don't move, or I'll... Ivy bit him. Her small teeth sank into his wrist with all the force her terror could muster. He yelped, his grip loosening, and in that moment Rosa moved, swinging a heavy vase with strength that seemed impossible for her frail frame. The man went down. Ivy scrambled free. And Sal was on him in an instant, his hands closing around the man's throat. Sal! Wren's voice cut through the red haze. Sal, stop! Ivy's watching. He froze, looked up. Ivy was staring at him with huge, frightened eyes, not frightened of the men who had come to take her, frightened of him, of what she'd seen him become. Slowly, carefully, Sal released his grip. The man collapsed, unconscious, joining his companions on the floor. Ivy. Sal's voice was hoarse. Ivy, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. She didn't move, didn't speak, just stared at him with those enormous eyes, and Wren's heart shattered at the betrayal in them. Then, impossibly, Ivy ran to him. She threw herself into his arms and held on like her life depended on it, her small body shaking with sobs. Don't let them take me, she whispered. Please. I don't care if you're scary. Just don't let them take me. Sal held her close, his eyes squeezed shut, his whole body trembling with the effort of keeping his composure. Never, he promised. I'll never let anyone take you. Do you understand me? Never. Wren moved to them, wrapping her arms around them both, and for a long moment they stayed like that. 3 broken people holding each other in the wreckage of what should have been a safe place. Rosa joined them, her arms completing the circle, her tears falling silently onto Ivy's hair. Family, she said softly. We're family now, and family protects each other. In the distance, sirens began to wail. Help was coming. The nightmare was almost over. But as Wren looked at the unconscious men on the floor, she knew the truth. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. And the war with Dennis Carver had only just begun. The courtroom was packed. Word had spread. Salvatore Romano taking on Dennis Carver, the city's most respected philanthropist exposed as a monster. Media vans lined the street outside. Reporters shouted questions that went unanswered. And inside, the gallery was standing room only, filled with people who had come to watch the powerful eat their own. Wren sat in the front row, her hands clasped so tightly in her lap that her knuckles had gone white. Beside her, Sal radiated a cold, controlled fury that seemed to lower the temperature of the room by several degrees. Ivy wasn't there. Rosa had insisted on keeping her at the estate, surrounded by guards, protected from the ugliness that was about to unfold. But Wren could feel her sister's presence anyway, in every piece of evidence being presented, every photograph of bruises, every medical record that documented the horrors she'd endured. The other survivors had testified that morning. 2 women in their 20s, their voices shaking but strong, describing what Carver had done to them when they were children. The gallery had gone silent. Even the judge, a gray-haired woman with sharp eyes and no patience for theatrics, had looked visibly shaken. Now it was Carver's turn. He took the stand with the same easy confidence he'd shown at the gala. The same practiced smile. The same air of wounded innocence that had protected him for so long. This is a witch hunt, he said, his voice carrying through the courtroom. A coordinated attack by a criminal organization seeking to destroy my reputation. Mr. Carver. The prosecutor, one of Sal's lawyers, a woman with silver hair and a reputation for ruthlessness, stepped forward. Are you suggesting that the testimony of 4 separate victims, spanning more than a decade, is fabricated? I'm suggesting that Salvatore Romano has the resources to manufacture whatever evidence he needs. Carver's eyes found Sal in the gallery. We all know what kind of man he is, what kind of business he runs. Your Honor, I move to strike. I'll allow it. The judge's voice was cool. But Mr. Carver, I'd advise you to focus on the evidence against you rather than attacking the character of others. Carver's smile flickered. The evidence is lies. That woman. He pointed at Wren. She's been trying to take Ivy from me since the day she was placed in my care. She's unstable, obsessive. She's manufactured this entire case because she can't accept that her sister is better off with me. Wren's nails dug into her palms. She wanted to scream, wanted to launch herself across the room and tear the smugness from his face. But she stayed still, because losing control was what he wanted, what he was counting on. Ms. Holloway is a licensed social worker with an unblemished record, the prosecutor said calmly. She's filed every complaint through proper channels. She's documented every instance of abuse according to protocol. She turned to the judge. The only reason this case wasn't pursued earlier is because Mr. Carver used his political connections to have her complaints dismissed. That's a serious accusation. I have evidence. The prosecutor held up a folder. Phone records showing conversations between Mr. Carver and the head of CPS 3 days before each of Ms. Holloway's complaints was dismissed. Bank records showing substantial donations to the re-election campaigns of 2 judges who ruled in Mr. Carver's favor. And she paused for effect. Testimony from a former CPS employee who was fired after she tried to investigate Mr. Carver's history. The gallery erupted. The judge banged her gavel. Carver's face went pale. This is inadmissible. My lawyers will... Your lawyers are welcome to challenge it. The prosecutor's smile was sharp. But I suspect they'll be too busy explaining to federal investigators how they helped you obstruct justice for the past 15 years. The trial continued for another 2 hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. By the time the judge called for a recess, Carver's composure had crumbled completely. His hands shook. His voice cracked. The mask of respectability had fallen away, revealing the monster that had been hiding beneath. Wren stepped out of the courtroom and found Sal waiting in the hallway. It's working, she breathed. It's actually working. It's not over yet. His expression was guarded. Carver still has resources, connections. He'll fight until the end. But we're winning. We're winning the legal battle. He took her arm and led her away from the crowd into a quiet alcove. That's not what worries me. What do you mean? Carver sent men to my home, to hurt my family. Sal's voice dropped. He's desperate, and desperate men don't follow rules. You think he'll try something else? I think he knows he's going to prison, and he wants to make us pay before he does. His eyes met hers. I've doubled the security at the estate. My best men are watching Rosa and Ivy around the clock. But I need you to stay close to me until this is over. I'm not leaving my sister. I know. That's why I'm asking you to stay at the estate too. His hand found hers. Please, Wren. I can't protect you if I don't know where you are. She looked at him. This man who had given her everything, asked for nothing, fought for her sister like she was his own blood. This man who killed without hesitation but held Ivy like she was made of glass. This man who had somehow, impossibly, become the center of her world. Okay, she whispered. I'll stay. Relief flickered across his face. Thank you. But you have to promise me something. Anything? When this is over, When Carver is in prison and Ivy is safe, you have to tell me what this is. She gestured between them. What we are. Because I can't keep pretending I don't feel something, Sal. I can't keep pretending that you're just a benefactor or a protector or a... He kissed her. It wasn't gentle, wasn't careful. It was desperate and fierce and full of everything they'd both been holding back for weeks. She gasped against his mouth, her hands fisting in his jacket, her whole body melting into his. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. I'm in love with you. His voice was raw, broken. I've been in love with you since the night you walked into my life with fire in your eyes and a sister worth fighting for. I've been in love with you every moment since, and I've been too afraid to say it because I don't deserve you. Because you're light, and I'm darkness, and everything I touch turns to ash. That's not true. It is true. I've built an empire on blood and fear. I've done things that would make you hate me if you knew. I know who you are. She cupped his face in her hands. I've always known. And I love you anyway. His eyes closed. A shudder ran through him. Ren dash dash. When this is over, she said softly, we're going to figure out what comes next. Together. You, me, Ivy, your mother. We're going to build something good out of all this wreckage. She kissed him again, soft and sweet. That's a promise. I don't deserve you. Maybe not. She smiled. But you're stuck with me anyway. They were still holding each other when Sal's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his expression changed. What is it? Carver. His voice went cold. He posted bail. What? How? Money, connections, the same things that have protected him his whole life. He was already moving, pulling her toward the exit. We need to get back to the estate. Now. The drive took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of Sal on the phone, barking orders, coordinating his men. 20 minutes of Ren's heart pounding, her mind spinning through worst-case scenarios. They were 5 minutes from the estate when the call came in. Ren watched Sal's face as he listened, watched the color drain from his skin, watched something shatter behind his eyes. What? She whispered when he hung up. What happened? Carver. His voice was barely audible. He got to the estate. No. No, you said there was security. Guards. He didn't go through the guards. Sal's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He went through the tunnels. What tunnels? Old smuggling routes, from the Prohibition era. His jaw clenched. I thought they'd been sealed. I was wrong. Ren couldn't breathe. Ivy. Rosa. Are they? They're alive. The panic room held. His eyes met hers. But Carver's still in the house, and he has a gun. The car screamed to a stop outside the estate. Sal was out before Ren could speak, moving toward the house with lethal purpose. Stay here. His voice left no room for argument. I mean it, Ren. Stay in the car. Sal? I can't lose you too. He cupped her face, kissed her hard. Please, let me end this. Then he was gone. Ren waited 30 seconds. Then she followed. The house was eerily quiet. She moved through the halls she'd come to know so well, her heart in her throat, her ears straining for any sound. She found them in Rosa's wing. Sal stood facing Carver, his body blocking the door to the panic room. Inside, Ren could hear Ivy crying, Rosa's voice murmuring comfort. Carver had a gun. It was pointed at Sal's chest. You took everything from me? Carver's voice was wild, unhinged. The polished philanthropist was gone, replaced by something feral. My reputation, my career, my freedom, everything I've built. You destroyed yourself. Sal's voice was calm, controlled. The moment you hurt the first child, you sealed your own fate. I'll kill you. I'll kill you. Then I'll kill everyone in that room. No. Sal shook his head. You won't. You think I'm afraid of you? You think I care about dying? I think you're a coward who spent his whole life hurting people who couldn't fight back. Sal stepped forward. But Ivy fought back. And so did her sister. And so did every survivor who testified against you today. Stay back. You've already lost, Dennis. You lost the moment that little girl grabbed my hand and asked me to help her. Another step. The only question now is how this ends. It ends with your death. Carver's finger tightened on the trigger. Wren moved. She didn't think. Didn't plan. Just saw the man she loved about to die and acted. She slammed into Carver from the side, knocking his arm just as the gun went off. The bullet went wide, shattering a window. Carver stumbled, and then Sal was on him. Brutal, efficient, devastating. In seconds, it was over. Carver lay on the ground, unconscious, the gun kicked far from his reach. Sal stood over him, breathing hard, his hands shaking. Wren. His voice was hoarse. I told you to stay in the car. I know. She was shaking too. I couldn't. You could have been killed. So could you. He crossed to her in 2 strides and pulled her into his arms. Don't ever do that again. I can't promise that. She held him just as tightly. You don't get to die, Sal. Not now. Not when we finally have a chance. A chance at what? Everything. She pulled back to look at him. A family. A future. A life that isn't defined by fear and loss. His eyes searched hers. You still want that? After everything you've seen? Everything I am? I want you. She kissed him. All of you. The darkness and the light. The panic room door opened. Ivy burst out and threw herself at them, her small arms wrapping around both their legs. You came, she sobbed. You came, you came, you came. Rosa followed, tears streaming down her face, and for a moment they all held each other, 4 broken people who had somehow found their way to something whole. It's over, Sal said softly. It's finally over. And for the first time in 18 years, he believed it. 1 year later, Wren stood in the garden and watched her family. Ivy was chasing butterflies through the roses, her laughter bright and clear and free of shadows. She'd grown 3 inches in the past year, her hair longer now, her eyes lighter. The nightmares still came sometimes, but less often. The flinching had faded. The little girl who had grabbed a stranger's hand and begged for salvation was becoming someone new, someone who knew what it meant to be safe, to be loved, to be home. Rosa was on the terrace, arranging flowers for the table. She'd been transformed by the past year, no longer drifting through life like a ghost, but present, engaged, alive in a way that Sal said he hadn't seen since before his sister died. Ivy had done that. Ivy, and the chance to be a grandmother to a child who needed one. And Sal dash dash. Sal was walking toward her across the lawn, his jacket off, his sleeves rolled up, looking nothing like the cold, dangerous man who had faced down a monster in a glittering ballroom. He looked younger, softer, happy in a way that still seemed to surprise him sometimes, like he couldn't quite believe it was allowed. You're doing that thing again, he said, echoing words from a year ago. What thing? Looking at everyone like you can't believe they're real. Maybe I can't. She smiled as he reached her. Sometimes I wake up and think I'm going to be back in that tiny apartment, still fighting a battle I could never win. That battle is over. He pulled her into his arms. Carver is in prison. His network is destroyed. The CPS reforms you pushed for are becoming law. He kissed her forehead. You won, Wren. You saved your sister, and you changed the system that failed her. We won. I couldn't have done any of it without you. You underestimate yourself. And you underestimate what you've done. She looked up at him. You could have walked away that night at the gala. You could have decided that one scared little girl wasn't your problem. No. His voice was quiet. Certain. I couldn't. Because of Lucia. Because of Lucia. And because of the man I wanted to be, instead of the man I'd become. He cupped her face in his hands. You showed me what that looked like, Ren. You and Ivy and my mother. You showed me that there was still light in the world, even after everything. There was always light in you. You just needed someone to help you find it. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching Ivy present Rosa with a bouquet of slightly crushed flowers. Rosa accepted them with elaborate ceremony, making Ivy giggle. I have something for you, Sal said. You're always giving me things. This is different. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. This is a question. Ren's heart stopped. He opened the box. Inside was a ring, not the massive diamond she might have expected, but something simpler. A delicate band of white gold, set with a single sapphire the color of the sky on a clear day. It was my grandmother's, he said softly. My mother gave it to me this morning, she said. His voice caught. She said it belonged to someone who brought light back into our family. Sal, I know I'm not what you expected. I'm not the kind of man who shows up in fairy tales. I've done things I can never undo, built a life I can never fully escape. He met her eyes. But I love you. I love your sister. I love the family we've built together. And I want to spend the rest of my life being worthy of it. You already are. Then marry me. His voice cracked. Let me spend the rest of my life proving it. Ren looked at the ring, at the man holding it, at the garden full of people she loved, the life she'd never dared to dream of. A year ago, she'd been alone, fighting a battle she couldn't win, watching her sister disappear into a system that didn't care whether she lived or died. And then a little girl had grabbed a stranger's hand and begged for help. And everything had changed. Yes, she whispered. Yes, Sal. 1,000 times. Yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly, like it had been waiting for her all along. Then he kissed her, deep and slow and full of promise. And she heard Ivy's delighted squeal from across the garden. You're getting married! Ivy came running, throwing herself at them with abandon. You're getting married! You're getting married! You're getting married! We are. Ren laughed through her tears, catching her sister and holding her close. Is that okay with you? It's perfect. Ivy beamed up at Sal. Does this mean you're going to be my brother? I think it means I'm going to be your brother-in-law. That's too many words. Ivy considered. Can I just call you my brother? Something broke and healed in Sal's expression all at once. You can call me whatever you want, Piccola. Then I'll call you Sal. She grinned. Because that's your name. Rosa had joined them now, tears streaming down her face, her arms open to embrace them all. My family, she said softly. My beautiful, broken, perfect family. They stood in the garden, a mafia boss with blood on his hands, a social worker who'd never stopped fighting, a little girl who'd survived the unsurvivable, and a mother who'd finally learned to live again, and they held each other. And Ren thought about that night at the gala, about a terrified child running through a crowd of strangers, searching for someone, anyone who would help. She'd found someone. They all had. I love you, she told Sal, told Ivy, told Rosa. All of you. Forever. Forever, they echoed. And as the sun set over the garden, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, Ren finally understood what she'd been searching for her whole life. Not safety, not stability, not even justice. Family. Real family. The kind that finds you when you least expect it and holds on until the end of time. Thank you all for watching this story unfold. If you enjoyed it, please write in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video as your support is essential for me to continue creating content like this.